You can be 35 years old and still, somewhere inside, be stuck at 17. You look like an adult, you pay bills, you have a job, maybe a family. But a part of you never quite arrived. It's still waiting for real life to begin, convinced that the job, the relationship, the city you're in right now, none of it is the real thing yet. The real thing is always just ahead, always about to start. Carl Jung studied this exact pattern for years and he gave it a name, the Puer Aeternus, the eternal child. Today people call it Peter Pan syndrome, and it is quietly running the lives of millions of people who have no idea it's happening to them. In the next few minutes, you'll see exactly what this is, the hidden signs you might be living it, where it secretly comes from, the price it quietly charges you, and the surprisingly simple way Jung said you break free. Some of this is going to feel uncomfortably familiar. That's the point. Let's start with what the Puer Aeternus actually is. The term is Latin for eternal boy. In Jung's psychology, it describes an adult whose emotional life has stayed frozen at an adolescent level. Someone who, in feeling and attitude, never fully grew up. The pop psychology world later called the same thing Peter Pan syndrome, after the boy who refused to grow up. But here's the key, and it's easy to miss. The Puer is not lazy and not stupid. Very often they're charming, intelligent, creative, full of dreams and potential. That's what makes this so hard to see. From the outside, they look like someone going places. The problem is internal. They never quite go. Jung described the Puer as someone who lives what he called a provisional life. A life lived as if it's temporary, a rehearsal for the real performance that never arrives. And underneath it all is a single, quiet fear. The fear of being caught in a situation they can't escape from. So they keep every door open and walk through none of them. That fear shows up in very specific ways. Let's look at the signs. See how many of these you recognize in others or in yourself. 1. The fear of commitment. Not just in relationships, in jobs, in cities, in decisions of any kind. Committing to one thing means losing all the others, and to the Puer, that feels unbearable. So they stay in between. 2. The something better feeling. A constant sense that this isn't it. The current job is just temporary. The current relationship is fine, but maybe not the one. There's always a better option just over the horizon, so why fully invest in this one? 3. Trouble with the ordinary. The Puer loves the dream, the big vision, the exciting beginning. But the boring, daily, unglamorous work of actually building something, that's where they lose energy. They want the destination without the road. 4. Running from limits, rules, routines, responsibilities, anything that feels like a cage. The Puer covets freedom above almost everything and reads any boundary as a threat. If a few of those landed a little too hard, don't panic. Recognizing this isn't a diagnosis and it isn't a life sentence, it's the first step out. And if this is hitting home, subscribing means the next one finds you. But to really get out, you have to understand where this pattern came from, because no one is simply born this way. The Puer pattern usually has roots in childhood, and Jung connected it closely to something he called the mother complex. Now, mother complex sounds like blame, but it isn't really about a bad parent, it's about a particular kind of comfort. Picture a childhood that was very safe, very warm, maybe a bit too enclosed. A world where everything was taken care of, where stepping out into hardship was never really required. That comfort feels like love, but it can quietly send a message. Out there is dangerous, in here is safe, don't leave. So the child grows up associating real life, struggle, responsibility, commitment with loss of comfort and safety. And a part of them decides without words that it's safer to stay the child, to keep the world at arm's length, to never fully step into the difficult, demanding business of being an adult. Jung saw something deeper here too. He believed the eternal child carries real gifts, spontaneity, creativity, a sense of wonder, openness to possibility. These aren't bad traits. The tragedy isn't having them. It's being stuck only in them. All wonder, no structure. All potential, no follow-through. The pure has the wings but refuses the ground. And that refusal has a cost. A bigger one than most people realize until it's late. So, what does a provisional life actually cost? On the surface, the pure's life can look fine for a long time. Lots of starts, lots of potential, lots of one day, but underneath, something quietly erodes. The years pass, and the gap between who they could be and who they've actually become starts to widen. Relationships suffer first because intimacy requires commitment, and commitment is the one thing the pure can't give. Partners feel held at a distance, kept as one option among many. Careers stall because mastery requires staying with something long after it stops being exciting. Friendships thin out as everyone else moves into the next stage of life. Jung described the person possessed by this pattern as someone experiencing a kind of quiet suffering, often without even knowing why. On the outside, freedom, options, youthfulness. On the inside, a slow, nagging sense that life is somehow passing them by, that they're watching from the sidelines of their own existence. And here's the cruelest part. The thing the pure fears most, being trapped, is exactly what they create. By refusing to commit to anything, they end up trapped in a permanent waiting room, free in every direction and going nowhere. So how do you actually get out? Jung's answer is almost disappointingly simple, and that's why it works. The cure that came out of Jung's work was one word: work. This idea was developed most famously by Marie-Louise von Franz, Jung's closest student, who gave the deepest lectures ever recorded on the Puer Aeternus, building directly on Jung's framework. Not exciting work, not the dream project. Ordinary, committed, unglamorous work. The kind that requires you to show up, stay, and keep going long after the initial thrill is gone. Jung believed the pure is healed not by a grand realization, but by doing the very thing they've been avoiding, committing to something real and staying with it. Because here's what commitment actually does. When you choose one thing, one path, one person, one craft, and you stop keeping the escape door open, something changes inside you. You stop being a tourist in your own life and start being a builder. The energy that was scattered across 100 maybes finally pours into one real thing. And paradoxically, the freedom the pure was chasing his whole life is found here. Not in endless options, but in depth. In Jung's larger framework, this is part of what he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming a whole, integrated person. For the pure, growing up doesn't mean killing the playful, creative child inside. It means giving that child a ground to stand on, keeping the wings, but finally building the legs to walk. The practical version is small and unglamorous, and that's the point. Pick one thing. Stay when it gets boring. Finish what you start. Let yourself be caught in one good commitment and discover it's not a cage at all. It's a foundation. One quick but important note, so no one thinks this is only about men. Jung described a female version too. The Puella Aeterna, the eternal girl. The pattern looks slightly different, but the core is the same. Emotionally staying the child, avoiding full adult commitment, living provisionally, always waiting for life to really begin. So if this video has been describing someone in your life or you, it isn't about gender. It's about a very human fear of stepping all the way into your own life. So here's where it lands. Growing up, in Jung's sense, was never about becoming boring or giving up your dreams or killing the spark inside you. It was about becoming whole, taking all that beautiful potential and finally pouring it into something real. The eternal child doesn't need to die. It needs a home. So I'll leave you with one honest question. Look at your life right now and ask, am I actually building something, or am I just keeping my options open, waiting for the real thing to start? Sit with that. You don't have to fix it today. Just be honest with yourself. That honesty is where it begins. If this gave you a new way of seeing yourself or someone you love, subscribe. The next video builds right on this one, and it's waiting on screen now. And tell me one honest word in the comments. Are you building, or just keeping your options open?